Hey, it's James Lynch. Last weekend, I had one of the worst travel experiences of my life, flying from Vancouver to Boston using Air Canada. And I wanted to make this video today to kind of educate people on some of the things that Air Canada is doing that I don't think people are aware of and how you can make your travel experience better. But before I do that, make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit that notification bell on this channel. I'm trying to put up content as much as I can, and your support is greatly appreciated. Now, this video is not to crap on Air Canada. I do think they did some good things here, but there were a lot of things that were just very unpleasant taking Air Canada that I wanted people to be aware of. So a little bit of context, this was a work trip going from Vancouver to Boston, and I didn't pay for the flight. This was through the company I did the work for, and they bought what's called a basic fare. Now, this is the type of fare that does not allow you to have carry-on luggage. I believe it's one of the cheapest ones. The company I work for, they should have given me a ticket that has carry-on luggage because I have equipment with me. So I had to go and film some stuff for this work trip a little while back. So I really needed my camera equipment, and just wanted to mention that context before I go any further in this video, that I did need my luggage. So once I realized I could not have any carry-on luggage, I thought I could just go to the airport and pay the fee to have carry-on luggage. No big deal. Now I get there and they tell me I am not allowed to bring any carry-on luggage no matter how much money I pay. I have to check in my luggage, which I understand that part. I'll cut Air Canada some slack. Obviously, if you have everyone using carry-on luggage, they're not going to have enough room. I understand all that. So that part I wasn't actually too irked about. I kind of understood it. It's like, hey, this is why you got to pay in advance to get carry-on because they only have a certain amount of space. I understand that. I can have some empathy for that. I should also mention that the check-in fee is about $30. So honestly, unless you're just going with enough clothes for maybe like a 24-hour trip, I really don't think the basic fare is worth it, because here's the other thing I found out. You get treated like a second-class citizen here. You're zone 6, you're usually the last zone to go in on your flight, and in a lot of cases they're going to give you the worst seating arrangement. I'll talk more about that a little bit later. So once I was told that I had to check in my luggage, one of the things I did, and I would recommend this to anyone out there, is get yourself a tracker, because if you're worried about where your luggage is going, at least one of these trackers like I have here from Tile, it'll at least tell you where your luggage is. So luckily, a veteran traveler like myself, I had one of these in my backpack, so I put that in the suitcase immediately. And then I had sort of peace of mind as to where I knew my luggage was going. So I should mention this was not a direct flight from Vancouver to Boston. I had to go Vancouver, Toronto, then to Boston. So it wasn't a direct flight. Now, I was lucky on this trip going from Vancouver to Toronto and then Toronto to Boston. I did have a window seat, so I was very lucky in that regard, but I know you're usually the first one on a basic fare to get the worst seating. Nobody likes sitting in a middle seat, especially for a long flight like going from Vancouver to Toronto. I also got lucky because the travel itself was fine. Both flights were good, no issues, no turbulence, no bad weather. It was very good in terms of the actual travel, no issues there. But then here's where things start to take a turn for the worse. I get to Boston and I check my Tile app on my phone. I notice on my phone that my luggage is still in Toronto, and I'm a little bit confused. Now, I'll give Air Canada some more credit here. Whenever you check in a bag with Air Canada, they have a new feature now where it does tell you where the bag's been scanned, and it does keep you in the loop. And then when I look on the app, it says it's on a Boston to Toronto flight, but it's on the wrong flight. I look at the flight number. That's not the flight number I have. That is for a flight that is 2 hours later that's going to be arriving in Boston later. So I know my luggage isn't here. You see the look on my face here. I'm not too happy about the fact that my luggage did not arrive here. And this is what I was hoping to avoid, which is why I didn't want to check in my luggage in the first place. So immediately after I realized my luggage is on the wrong flight, I go to the Air Canada customer service. Now, I'm pretty good with people when it comes to customer service. I've never been a guy to like blow up at people or whatever, because I know in a lot of cases, you're not talking to the person responsible for you. You're talking to a middleman. So I totally understand that. So the guy, he was reasonable, but I did ask the simple question as to why my luggage was on the wrong flight. I was not given an explanation. On top of that, there was a guy on my flight who had the same issue. So it looks like a number of bags were on the wrong flight as far as checked in luggage. So that's not very good. So there was some issue going from Toronto to Boston where they put it on the wrong flight. Now, the guy at the customer service said, oh, was it a short connecting flight? No, it wasn't. When I arrived in Toronto, I had about an hour and a half before my next flight. So there's no excuse as far as them not having time to load on my luggage. If it was a short flight, I could at least understand that, but it wasn't. I told the guy that, and he still didn't have an explanation as to why the luggage went out there. Again, I'm always polite with these people because it never does any good if you're rude to customer service people. I just wanted to get my bag back. And another bit of context too, I needed this bag because it had all my camera equipment, which I was using on the work trip. So that's another reason why I really needed the bag. So the guy filled out an incident report, and I basically had two options. Option number one is I leave the the airport, go to my hotel, and I get them to drive me out the luggage. Now I'm staying about 40 minutes away from Boston, so that didn't seem very ideal because, like I said, I needed to get my equipment. Then there's option 2 is I have to wait 2 hours for my luggage to arrive. I opted to take option 2 because I need my luggage. I'd rather be the one to handle the luggage when it arrives in Boston, and that way I have peace of mind knowing that my luggage is going to get to me and I'm not going to have to worry about my equipment not arriving in time. So I found out the flight was going to arrive about 2.5 hours after my flight landed, so I had some time to kill. And here's one of the things you got to realize if you're not past security, there's no restaurants, there's nowhere really to eat. So I had to basically eat Starbucks for dinner because there were no restaurants around. I thought, oh, maybe I could kill some time getting a nice meal. Nope, that's all past security. And I couldn't go there obviously because I didn't have a ticket because I was waiting for my luggage. So that's aside the point, but yeah, if you ever have to wait for your luggage, it's not a great experience because there's nothing to do there basically. Now here's the kicker. My luggage comes in and I notice right away there's a huge crack on the suitcase. So they didn't handle it very well. So they put it on the wrong flight and they did not handle the baggage very well. It looked like it fell in a corner or something because there's a crack on the corner of the suitcase. And I'm upset. But again, I kept my composure. I go to the guy at the customer service desk and say, hey, look, my bag's cracked here, because I thought maybe I could fill out a damage report right then and there. He tells me, no, you can fill that out online. More on that later, by the way, because that is a key detail in this story. Now let's fast forward to the end of my work trip. I'm about to check into my flight the next day, and I notice on the flight back from Toronto to Vancouver, which again is about a 4-hour flight, that I'm stuck in a middle seat. Again, because I'm on a basic fare and you get slim pickings there. I'm going to be working late at the event the night before. I'm not going to have much sleep. I want to sleep on the plane. I want to kill most of the time by sleeping on the plane. So I want to make sure I get a window seat. So I was like, you know what? I'll bite the bullet. I'll pay the extra fee to change my seat because again, I'm on a basic fare. So you're going to have to pay to change your seat. So I change it over to a window seat. I have to pay for the checked in luggage, which is $30. I have to pay about $70 to get my seat changed, which is a lot. But I was like, look, I want to get some sleep. It's a 4-hour flight. It would be great to get that. So I pay both those things. I look on my credit card statement and it says that I've been charged $200 Canadian. So it was around, I think $28 American for the checked in bag. It was about, like I said, $50 US, which works out to about $70 Canadian for that. So it should be about under $100. Why am I getting charged $200? So I then have to call Air Canada to figure out why I've been charged $200 Canadian for simply switching my seat and paying for checked in luggage. Now, thankfully, I didn't have to wait on the line a long time because they had the option to call you back, which again, plus for Air Canada for doing this, I didn't have to sit on the phone for a couple hours, but they did call me back about 3 hours later. I get a hold of someone at customer service. I asked them, hey, I got an email for a receipt that shows that I've changed my seat. I also got a receipt that showed that I had checked in some luggage. Where's this extra money coming from? The guy on the phone tells me that apparently there is a pending charge that doesn't get charged to my credit card for a check-in fee. Now, I guess what happens is some people don't check in their luggage. They get to the gate. It's too late to check in your luggage. So you have to have carry-on and they charge you an extra $80. They already put that charge on there thinking that I was going to pull a fast one. But the thing is, they don't tell you. So I see this extra charge on my credit card. Now, granted, it's pending. It's not actually been charged, but they don't tell you that. So I had to call them just to find this out. So again, not happy that they didn't mention any of this. I have to find this out on the phone while taking time out of my work trip to actually figure this whole thing out. So I didn't like that because again, there should be some transparency. If you're going to have a pending charge on there, at least let me know. When you check into a hotel and they say, hey, there's going to be $100 charge on here for damages, potential damages, I get that, but they didn't do any of that with Air Canada. So didn't like that. My early morning flight from Boston to Toronto was totally fine. It was also a snowstorm this weekend, so understandable that things are going to happen. I knew I was bracing myself for a tough travel day. I land in Toronto. I find out on my app that they have changed the aircraft, which I'm like, okay, understandable. There's a storm going on. Maybe they needed a better aircraft or something happened. Totally get that. However, I have a problem in that I look at my seat and I'm back in a middle seat, despite the fact that I had paid for a window seat on this flight. So I go up to the counter. I said, hey, I paid for a seat switch to the window. I'm now in the middle. Sorry, the flight's oversold. There's nothing we can do. You can call them later for a refund. I didn't like that because I went out of my way to go through all this trouble of paying for the seat change. I'm now being charged. I now then have to call back Air Canada to get the refund for a mistake that they made. So again, not very good. I don't understand why just because we changed aircrafts that my seat gets put back to the middle. Doesn't make any sense. But again, this goes back to what I said off the top is if you get the basic fare, you are treated like a second-class citizen. So that's probably why I was moved back to the middle. I toughed it out. I was able to get a little bit of sleep despite the fact that I was in the middle seat. No big deal. I end up landing, and then immediately when I get home, I go to file the damage report on my suitcase because it's cracked. Turns out I have to go back to the airport because you can't do it online. That guy was wrong. So I need to go back and get my suitcase. They have to look at the suitcase and everything else. You can't just submit photos. And I guess I kind of understand that, but then why did the guy tell me to do it online? So the next day I drive back to the airport. It's about a 30-minute drive from where I live. I go back. I had a really good customer service agent at the desk there. I got to give them credit for that. She was awesome. She told me all the things I needed to do to make sure that I would get a replacement suitcase for the fact that they broke my suitcase. That's all good. So I got to give Air Canada credit for that. Did take a while though. Like I said, it took about 40 minutes and all that, but I did get the suitcase claim put in so I could be reimbursed for that. I then get home. I have to call Air Canada again about this charge that I had for the seat change that I didn't even get to use. And they assure me that day that, oh, don't worry, it'll be refunded. The next morning, I look on my bank statement. I see, and actually even at the time I'm recording this, it's still on my account that I've been charged $70 for a seat change that I didn't make. So I call Air Canada again. I said, look, I talked to you guys yesterday. You said I was getting refunded. I'm not seeing anything on my account. It says that I've been charged. The guy says, oh no, it has been refunded. Here, I'll send you an email about it. Why didn't you send me the email in the first place? Maybe that's something I should have asked on the phone the first time, but still, I've been through the ringer with you guys already. Why couldn't you have just sent me proof that you did the refund? Doesn't make any sense at all. So like I said, right now at the time I'm recording this, I still have that charge on there. I did get an email saying I'm getting a refund, but it would be nice if that was a little bit faster. Now again, I'll give Air Canada some credit. Right after I filed the claim, a day later, I get an email saying, hey, we've approved. We obviously know that your suitcase was damaged. Here's a list of options. You can get your suitcase right away. And at the time I'm recording this, they did ship out the suitcase this morning. So that is good. So again, I want to be fair here. I think Air Canada did some good things here, like the fact they were very swift about the damaged suitcase, but they did some bad things here, which, were, not changing my seat, them basically treating you terribly if you're on a basic fare. I will never buy a basic fare ever again in my life. I would almost rather pay more to not have to deal with all this hassle because like I said, they don't treat you very well. And I get why they offer it because there are people who abuse the carry-on system and all that different stuff. And you should reward people who are willing to pay more. I understand all that. I just think Air Canada could be a little bit better about communication. So I'll still fly Air Canada. I will never go the basic fare again, and I've already told my company, don't ever put me on a basic fare again. But in general, I just wanted to let you guys know that I just don't think it's a good idea going with the basic fare. Pay the little bit extra to get a normal fare that includes carry-on. And even if you don't have carry-on, I still think it's a better idea because like I said, I just think they put you at the bottom of the ladder when it comes to traveling. And I'm someone who's traveled enough that I don't want to be on the bottom of the ladder. I'm not some teenager who's traveling for the first time. I'm someone that has traveled a lot and, I prefer my comfort. I'll pay a little bit more for that. So hopefully this video was educational for you guys. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. And again, this is mainly for Canadians who are flying with Air Canada. If you're in the US, you're probably not going to be flying Air Canada. So just something to keep in mind and wanted to give you my whole experience of traveling with Air Canada in 2026. My name is James Lynch. Like I said, if you have any questions, let me know in the comments. Happy to help. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell. Really appreciate you watching. I'll see you next time. And thanks so much for tuning in.